Evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. We are back, our show called The Power of Education. Welcome, 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 ladies. I'm going to ask you to just quickly introduce yourselves so people get to know our panel. Tell us where you're based, how you are feeling today with regards to the story that we've been tracking. Memory was a 14-year-old little girl who died giving childbirth in Zimbabwe. And the United Nations is putting pressure on the Zimbabwean government to stop child marriage. So we are advocating for this. We are asking women from all over the world, men from all over the world, to help us with this endeavor. We'll start with you, Ruth. How are you feeling today? And tell us where you are.
Thank you, Gertrude. My name is Ruth Dengwani. I am in Harare in Zimbabwe. And it still saddens me that even after we lost memory, it seems like her family went ahead and gave another child to that man in a sort of replacement arrangement. So still very heavy and still very painful to hear that.
Oh, gosh. Deborah, your thoughts today?
Hi, I'm Deborah Molem. I'm in the UK. What we are failing to understand is, to these people, this is normal. They are programmed that this is right. Once upon a time, I knew a family that believed in voodoo and magic and everything, and they truly believed that. You cannot walk into that family and say, this is wrong, stop, like that, because that's what they believe. And when you believe something, it actually works for you. These people are so programmed for generations. And they are now wondering, why are people saying this is wrong for us? What's needed is to work with their minds, what's called deprogramming, so that they see things the way we are seeing them. I'm not surprised that they gave another child at all, because it's what they do. It's what they've done for generations. It's wrong, yes, very wrong, but to them, it's not.
That is their norm. Thank you, Deborah. Mabel, how are you feeling today?
Hi everyone. My name is Mabel Munyamani. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, but I'm currently in Ghana at the moment. The story of memory, when I initially read about it, I had a sudden heaviness in my heart. Not that we didn't know about this situation that's been happening for years, but I guess it's an indication of the continuation of what's happening. So it remains heavy because I believe in the potential and the future of children. But what future does she have now? She's dead, she's gone. And the others in similar situations as hers, it just really makes my heart really heavy. What can we do as women, as a community, as a people, wherever we are? We cannot just keep watching and keep allowing and keep until we hear another big story again of another child who's lost their life. Something has to happen, and I think that's the reason why it's been highlighted again. We need to do something about it. Yeah, so I'm really heavy, still really heavy about it. Yeah.
Thanks, Mabel. Kathleen.
My name is Kathleen Mauto, and I'm in the United Kingdom. This morning, it really it's heartbreaking to think that the girl child is going through such trauma so much that people are not recognizing that this is only a child who is supposed to be protected and cared for. And I've been reflecting because I've got a granddaughter who is almost 12. She's still a little girl who actually, each time when I call her, she says, Grandma, you didn't send me sweets. Grandma, you didn't tell me this because she's only a girl. So for a family who believe in what is going on, I think it's time that we need to put pressure to that people are educated so that they understand what they are supposed to be and to do, and also what is their responsibilities, and also what they should do in case of the girl child. So it is really painful to imagine they gave him another 9-year-old. It's quite painful.
Now the child is even younger,
Yeah.
9 years old, and she's been married off. Victoria, thank you, Kathleen. Victoria, do you want to chime in your thoughts? Tell us where you're based and how you're feeling today.
I'm very well, thank you. I'm based in Windhoek, Namibia. My thoughts are that we need to stop this child marriage. The 9-year-old is still here, say we don't know if it's true. So we need to protect every other young girl who can be given away in marriage. And as we do that, we need to understand also the background, because memory is not the first one, and the reasons why this is happening, so that we don't just go out there and say, don't marry off children. I also have a 13-year-old granddaughter. So I know what that would do to me if that was to happen to my granddaughter. So as we talk about it, we need to have a full story to talk about to people, not just to focus on memory, but to know that this has been going on for a long time, and out of the media, the social media, and the very few people who can afford the newspaper. So as we talk, our story must be understood by, you can imagine, the community in that area. To them is their livelihood. I was shocked when I was looking at an audio in is it Chipinge? Yes. When a chief is put on the throne, what happens there? Life just goes haywire. Married men, married women do anything there. Married women can fall pregnant, and if it said it was done when the chief was put on the throne, nothing happens. So there are a lot of cultures that tisingatonzwisisa isusu vacho maZimbabweans. So we need to understand the whole background, of that community, for that community to even accept what people coming outside of the community are saying or advising.
Thanks, Vicky. It's good to have you back on the show. So there is a short video that is trending on TikTok, on Facebook, that I want to share. They say that out of the mouths of babes, out of the mouths of children, the truth can be heard. So there is a very young Zimbabwean actress. I still haven't found out her name, but I'll just share that little video because it really touched me when Ruth shared it this morning.
Mama, why, Mama? Why did you say yes, Mama? Why, Mama? Why did you say yes? I'm pregnant. Look at me. I'm pregnant, Mama. Why? Why, Mama? I'm a child. I can't push another child. Why, Mama? I'm pain. I'm pain. I'm pain. Not to child marriage. No to child abuse. No, no, no. I said no. I've done it.
Powerful appeal to everything we're discussing. Now, Deborah said something that's really important that we need to highlight, because this video is going out internationally. We have our friends here in New Zealand, in Australia, in the UK, in the USA who will get to watch this video. But just so that you understand the culture that this has all happened. This young girl was born to a religious sect who believe in child marriage. Children can be married off as young as 9, 10, 11, 12 to older men. And what has happened is the normal. It's the norm for them. And it's very, very difficult to go into some of these communities and impose a different way of being or a different way of doing. So I think with dialogue, anything can be solved. You know, I was working with a group of women in Kenya, and we were advocating against female genital mutilation. I didn't understand it because it doesn't happen in Zimbabwe. And they took me to a very remote village where I got to interact with the grandmothers, the mothers, the aunts, the women in that community, and trying to get my head around why they were still cutting their daughters. And some of the mothers said, Gertrude, this is a gift to my daughter. And I said, what do you mean? They said, if she's not circumcised, she will not get married. Look at the environment we live in. And these communities are living in semi-desert. There's no food. There's nothing there. And unless you get married, you will starve to death. So our mothers, our sisters, our aunts will pin down their daughters and cut everything away with a blunt razor blade. Little African girls die of secondary infections. They are stitched up with thorns. They leave you a hole big enough for you to pee. The scarring that happens when those girls turn into women who have babies at childbirth is horrendous. Fistula is a big issue in these communities. And that's when you have such severe tears, you can't retain your feces. So these women start to smell. They are kicked out of the community. They live on the fringes of these villages by themselves because they smell so badly. So we went in. We were a group of women from all over Africa trying to find a solution. We included the fathers, and we asked what could be done to change this practice. Now, when I got married, my parents got a lobola, a bride price. I'm sure all of you experienced the same thing. There's a lot of pride associated with getting a dowry for your daughter. The money that the family gets helps. My parents were given goats, they were given cows, they were given money. Now, it's not that our parents are marrying us off or selling us. The traditional culture was your husband would never pay in full the dowry that is owed to your father and your mother. They pay a part of it. They're forever indebted to your parents. And it's an exit clause so that if you are unhappy and you want to go home, Mkwasha will always owe his in-laws part of the dowry. So it's not an outright transaction or sale. However, it has become very commercialized. And the culture has been corrupted somewhat because of the need for money. So now it looks like it's a financial transaction. Anyway, when I sat down with this community, the father said to us, we can stop the cutting and we can substitute it with a gift to the family. So what is happening in those communities, these women from Kenya came together and they started raising money to buy goats. The rite of ceremony passage takes place, but not the cutting. So it's a transition from girlhood to womanhood. There's a whole ceremony that's around it. They kill goats and cows, and there's a celebration of your rite of passage into womanhood. However, they gift each of the parents of each of the girls with a goat. Now, a $25 goat in Kenya is worth millions of shillings, millions. They don't kill the goats for meat. They keep them for milk. If they want protein, they puncture a vein, they drain the blood, they make blood sausages. Goats multiply fast. So if you give a family a goat, they multiply quickly. So it's again more wealth for the family. So in the communities where these women from Kenya are actually succeeding, they have substituted the cutting ritual by gifting the family with a goat. So they raise the money for these goats. And whenever they hear that there's a ceremony for circumcision, they go to the parents, they go to the fathers, the grandmothers, and they gift the family with a goat. And the tradition is held, but the cutting has been pulled back. So for us as Zimbabwean women, we need to find ways similar to this, where we can go back home, respecting the culture. There is a reason why this is being done, but we have to find a way to substitute what is currently being done. For example, we could start a fund and say to the parents, if you keep your daughters in school until they're 18, we will help with sponsorship to pay for school fees. It could be something very, very simple. So I'm wanting us to just brainstorm around that and see what kind of solutions, tangible solutions, we can create. There's no point in trying to fight against this. Like we said, we all grew up in Zimbabwe. We knew about this. I'm 54 years old. From as long as I can remember, this Apostolic Faith Church operates this way. So now we have to find substitutes. So if anybody wants to chip in with ideas, with comments, please just put up your hand and we'll call on you to say something. Anyone? Just give me an indication. Yes, Kathleen.
Thank you, Gertrude. What you have said really, I felt the pinch on it, and definitely, as you said, that there need to be a way that we have to find a solution to the girl child in Zimbabwe by training the parents, just like what Deborah was saying the other day, that if we are going to be successful, we'll have to have a solution that includes the fathers as well. So as you just narrated there, I said the other day, I was born in this church, and my father and mother, my father was one or two Muvangeri and Makanatu, so he'll be wearing that garment, and he has got three stars here. So that was my father, and my mother was a prophet in that church, where Makanatu. I don't know how to put it into their English thing. So I grew up in that church until we got up to, I think, about 11 years or 12 years. And my parents, it was my father actually, because my father said, I don't think I want my children to grow up in this church, because it was like, that was the norm, that when it was time for Pentecost, the young girls will be going and getting water for the wine. So they take the young girls, those ones who even started going for periods. So it is that time they are initiated to this owner of the church. That time, my time, it was still the owner, the one who started this church. So, and my father took us out of the church. But as I always say, still the doctrine which my mother got from it, and she still believed in a child getting married young. So I still got married young at 14. So it is that doctrine which is to be deprogrammed and be made to be aware to the parents that they need to let their girl child grow. So we need to start a fund and education as well, because education is powerful, I believe.
Thanks, Kathleen. Vicky, I see you want to weigh in there.
Yes, I'm so happy with the example you gave of Kenya. I'm turning 60 in October, on the 6th of October. So I'm not very young. I know I've got good genes. So I've gone through the system. I've worked in most of the international organizations in the World Bank, USAID, Family Health International, everywhere. Our situation right now, I know Zimbabweans are very bored with a lot of trainings, and the word up there is people come to train you because they eat money from donors. So our situation right now wants action, practical action. So I'm in that project you talked about in Kenya, I know what a goat means to a Zimbabwean right now. Because a Zimbabwean knows if I get 1 or 2 goats now, within a short period, I'll be having 15 or 20 goats. So let's be practical. We know education is what has put us where we are today, because if you question things which the professors...
No. Vicky dropped off there. What happened? I think her connection.
We go into the community, we speak to the community leaders, we explain to them this is what we want to do for the families here. We explain to them. We are not going to train them because Zimbabweans are bored and fed up with training. We have so many qualifications. I'm sure people who have gone on to my LinkedIn can see I graduate with something every year. It's a hobby for me to study. So I know what I'm talking about. Zimbabweans are fed up with training, which has no
tangible results.
That's why Professor Murwira is talking about Education 5.0. I'm an expert in that. I assess for the South African Qualification Authority and the Namibian. So go to give people solutions. We're going to bring this. We know it has worked in another African country, and we are not going to challenge their ways of living. We want to help the communities who cannot feed their families. We're going to give each family which is living under the lower the poverty datum line 2 goats or whatever, and we will monitor, and we will also bring in trainers to how to look after goats, not to teach them gender equality, gender equity, any other training. It will not work. Let's do something different, and let's copy and paste the Kenya project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to contribute there? Deborah?
Also, as we do that, we need to encourage the industrialization in communities. Because these people are not lazy, they work so hard. They need to be taught the advanced ways of selling their way. This is the thing, like in Zimbabwe, people farmed very well last year and the year before, and then they are not allowed to sell their products how they want. You get arrested for selling your maize by the bus stop because the government wants you to get your maize to GMB. And then when you get your maize to GMB, they turn around and say, oh, we don't have cash, we'll give you this bottle of cooking oil. So people are being forced into this, okay, why should I farm then if I can't sell my cotton? Because growing cotton is lovely. But we know how hard it is to grow cotton if you don't have the machinery. These people ferry water on their heads to water the seedlings. And then they get 2 bells, 3 bells, and that's hard work. And the government said, no, you can't sell it wherever you want. You have to bring it to us. 2-3 months down the line, we don't have cash, by the way, we're going to give you groceries for your cotton. Well, I don't want groceries. I wanted my money so I can budget it and do what I want with it. So these people need to have that little bit more outlay to say, okay, if you farm your stuff here, we can help you sell it. You can actually export it. We need those avenues opened. We need these guys to know that, well, if you get too many tomatoes, you can produce something out of them. Don't just throw them away. It shouldn't go to waste. The work of your hands shouldn't be going to waste all the time.
I'd like to chime in there, Deborah. I was hired by the Grenadian government in the Caribbean. The Ministry of Culture asked me to come and help with a project in Grenada. They had a similar issue to what you've just said. In Grenada, they grow cocoa to make chocolate. And there are farms and farms of organic cocoa going to waste because the locals don't want to work in the fields because they can't sell their product directly to market. They have to sell to the government, very similar to what you've just said. However, we found a loophole in the legislation. I have a friend who went and got her farm certified organic, and she grows her cocoa She learned how to turn the cocoa into chocolate. So you can sell your product if you add value to it. Same thing with the maize, same thing with the cotton. If people can turn that cotton into fabric, if people could turn that cotton and start weaving yarn. You know, I'm living in New Zealand. New Zealand wool is such a high premium product. But imagine if we had organically certified cotton being made by women in Zimbabwe, being processed and being sold on an international market, where that could take these communities. So there are ways around what people can do with their product, helping empower them so they can, like you said, industrialize. If it's tomatoes, turn them into tomato sauce, like you said the other day. There's another project that I was following, I think it's in somewhere in South America. The richest woman in this community started making, she lived near a banana plantation. And when the bananas got overripe, they were just dumped. And this woman bought pieces of sheets of plastic. She started slicing those overripe bananas. She started drying them. And now she's the wealthiest woman around the banana production field by just adding value to it. So with maize, there is a woman, I think from Zimbabwe, who started roasting the maize, salting it, packaging it, smaputi, and exporting. You know, so there's ways that we can add value to our product and find export markets for it, and especially if the food is organic. Now, the advantage we have in Zimbabwe is that almost everything is organic. There's no pesticides in our soil. If you go to the United States and you go to Trader Joe's and you try and buy a bunch of kale, 3 leaves will cost you $3 of kale. You know? So we need to start thinking in that way. What do we already have that could be refined, that could be exported? I really like the idea of Deborah. We need to start commercializing the production of our produce. Vicky, you want to say something, and then Mabel?
Okay, thank you. I stay in Namibia, but I'm home 6 times a year. At times I spend a year or 6 months because I'm a freelance and I move freely between Namibia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. I think where the government comes in and tells people what to do is where the government is given inputs. However, I'll give the example of Pfumvudza. Pfumvudza, people are expected to give a third to the food bank, a third keep for their own seeds, a third for their own consumption. There's no outright that you can't sell. And I have a son who is doing cotton in Chegutu. And I know what cotton is, just the price is a bit lower, but it's the same process as well. And about additional adding value, there are so many women's groups, since I'm talking like a woman now, who are doing that. And there are a lot of trade agreements in the SADC region. Any product made in one of the SADC countries with 25%, and here we are even talking 100%, goes into South Africa, goes into Namibia, goes into Swaziland, go duty-free. It's just to pass on. The statutes are there. I think with Namibia, it's been here for 25 years old. The kale we eat in Namibia comes to Namibia from Zimbabwe. Zimbabweans have started also to make gardens here. Carpenter we eat in Namibia comes from Zimbabwe. Peanut butter we eat in Namibia comes from Zimbabwe. The systems are there. They are not just taken to the people who need them, but they are there.
So I think there's a need for that type of knowledge and education to be made mainstream, Vicky, because a lot of people don't know this.
That's right.
You know, this is where the gap, there's a gap between knowledge and what's on the ground. If people were aware you could export your produce duty-free to South Africa, Namibia, and make a decent living, this should be happening. You know, people have been going to South Africa, our mothers have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. The systems are there. Yeah, the systems are there. People just don't know. That's why I'm saying let's go away from the usual thing. Let's
Yeah.
look at what clear systems are there. A lot of people, of course, in smaller groups, they come to Namibia. The agricultural show of Namibia, there's always Zimbabweans with their tables there, with their wares. It's there. Any embassy, anywhere you ask them, they will tell you those trade agreements are there, and they can be facilitated by the embassy. That those trades and those the simple basics are. And people are making a living here. We borrow money from people who are sitting by the corridors and selling carpenter, madora, everything, like you say, organically made from Zimbabwe.
I love that. Yeah, so we need to create a program and an awareness so people know that they can export. Ruth, you want to chime in? And I know Mugushia is in Uganda. You keep dropping in and out. Ruth, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Mugushia so he can introduce himself.
Oh, was Mabel before me? I know you had.
Yeah, okay. Mabel. All right, Mabel. Mabel's struggling as well with her connection, I think.
Okay, so I was going to say to Vicky, maybe then what we need is if we know the demand that these markets need in terms of quantities of what we need, so that when we go to these communities, we are saying we are looking for so many kgs of kale, we are looking for so many kgs of madora or whatever, matimba, whatever they produce, and take away the burden of them worrying about the customs, worrying about the processes, just giving them like, okay, so we are here, we are going to do the logistics, we are the facilitators. Give us your product and we'll bring back your money.
Yes,
because sometimes people...
Zimtrade is all that information, and I think Zimtrade is represented in every province of Zimbabwe. And they are doing a lot of training, Zimtrade, on that, on marketing.
In the rural areas?
But through their offices, yes, in their rural. I have family in the rural areas, and my family knows, and I hear that information from my family. And the Ministry of Gender as well has a big budget for rural women in agriculture, in every sector, agriculture, tourism, everything. There's a big budget there at Minister Stembison's office, and that money is being dished out every day to people who've got projects. What they just don't do, they don't do individual. You must be organized and in a group. The systems are there. They are not just being disseminated. The ministry is disseminating. I carry my Zimbabwe decoder, ZBC. I watch ZBC every night on TV. And I see those programs on TV every week. I'm a member of ProWeb. I see a lot of dissemination of information for the availability of such assistance from the Ministry of Gender. Thank you.
So it sounds like it's more a matter of people working in a coordinated group as a cooperative to get that access, correct?
That's right. Yeah, people have to be organized, because if Vicky walks in, Gertrude, Ruth, everybody, as individuals, we end up taking care of our individual families. We want to feed the communities. So the number, this cooperative, there are 7 cooperatives. I'm sure Ruth, I am short-sighted. When I don't have my glasses, I can't tell the name. You know that, and women have been taught how to save. Women are saving, and after they save, they are taking this money, helping this family first, move from that family. Those things are going on in the rural areas, but it's just they are not trickling to every rural area, and to every family. The systems are all already. It's just replicating them to every rural area, to every household, to every woman. So that's why it's important to go through the chiefs, the headmen, madumeni, and everybody, because vanoshika kwese, and everybody listens to them. And go, every province, every town, the trade, the Zimtrade is represented. The ministries have their officers there. You go to their offices there. It's just maybe there's no cohesion and things are segmented, but the systems are there. They just need to be followed up and be polished and to be made to reach to where they are supposed to reach.
That's awesome. Maybe you wanted to chime in?
Yes, thank you. I'm loving your input, Victoria, about all these systems in place and the support and the budgets already there. But sometimes it's a case of what you know is what you know, and what you don't know, you don't know. And I think, I believe most of the cultures and traditions that are still happening, it's mainly rooted on poverty. If they have another option and if they know that there's another option, they'll take it up. I think evidently that the reason why these practices are still there is because that's the only option for these parents. So whilst we say, education, we've got to a certain level, I don't think they know the practicality of how to practicalize the resources they have, we talk about industrialization. For them, maybe it's a word they've never had, and how to even practicalize that into action, into actual things, so that if they can grow their own maize, monetize it, then they probably don't have to sell their girl child because they can keep the child at home and they can afford the education. So I think then we need the middle people, the teachers on ground. So it's coming to the ground and speaking to the families and actually understanding what do they have in their hand and what is their passion. We go back to passion. I think a couple of days ago we spoke about the passions and tapping into their own interests. So we're speaking to the individuals. They are the cotton, for example, if they're maize producers. So how can we multiply this, what you have in your hand? Because that's the biblical concept of what you have in your hand, use that. And then multiplication and blessings come from that. So then we connect them again to what Victoria is talking about. There's this budget, there's Zimtrade, there's these organizations that are there. So I think there's a disconnection between the supply and the service, actually, to make the people understand that there's this available. So I think if we can have manpower on the ground, bridging the gap and having discussions with these families that, okay, so you guys, what do you have? What do you do? What's your family lifestyle? And how can we make things better for you? Because every family is individual and what their needs are different. If you understand that, why are they actually marrying off their child, you will find out that maybe the actual reason is because for whatever beliefs they have or for whatever reasons, it's simply poverty. It's simply they don't have another option. So I think if you go right ground and bridge the gap and understand does the family need, because I think we all have great ideas, but if they're not being replicated and we don't understand the ground people, what do they need in order to have another option, in order to move to the next step, I think that's what's missing in all these discussions, actually understanding what the family needs. If you speak to the dad, move on to the next level for you to be able to be independent so that you don't have to marry your child, so you can take your daughter to school. What do you actually need? And when we understand their needs, and then maybe we start from there implementing a plan is in how to move forward from there. I think that's the gap that's missing.
I like that, Mabel. I remember I used to work for the Lutheran Church, Lutheran World Federation. They had a water and sanitation program in Zimbabwe. I was about 24 years old, and we had a $5 million budget to sink boreholes, layer toilets throughout rural Zimbabwe. And I remember this project falling flat. After 5 years, we sunk boreholes, we built Blair toilets. The women in the communities refused to use the boreholes that were sunk outside their doors. When we did an evaluation of that project 5 years later, the women asked us, why didn't you ask us what we wanted? A lot of people come to Zimbabwe, we mean well, we want to help, but we go into these communities with a perspective of what we think they need. And they boycotted those boreholes. They said to us, why didn't you ask us? We wanted a school for our children. We would rather walk 10 kilometers to get water every day, so long as my kids are in school. They said we needed a clinic. So they had their own priorities of what their needs were. We came in as the Lutheran Church. This is what we're going to do. You need water. The other thing we found out was that if we had built one borehole, a communal borehole, You know, in Zimbabwe, our husbands are working in the cities, the women are in the village with the children. And the only time you get human contact with another adult is when you go and fetch the water. Those women will meet and congregate at the water point. You find out who's dead, who's dying, who's had a baby. If you have a fight with your husband at home, you go and spend the day with Chwacha, you know, talking, laughing with the other women. It's a therapeutic place to be. So we came in with a very Western perspective of what was needed with no consultation whatsoever, wasted 55 million US dollars. So you're right. We have to do things in consultation with the needs of the people we serve and know that we are just there as facilitators for progress. You know, when we did the project in Mazivisa primary school, we were having a lot of theft. We took over a primary school. I was sending supplies, books, pencils, stationery to Zimbabwe. And within 2 or 3 days, somebody would break in and steal. The poverty levels in our communities are high. Then we realized that we were going to waste money just trying to do things without the buy-in of the community, giving the community ownership of this project. So we changed everything. When we were rebuilding the school, we started a microloan program where we were giving people $50 US. They could buy 5 bags of cement. They could make 1,000 bricks, and we were buying back the bricks at 25 cents a piece. So out of $50, they were making $250. They paid back the loan, and they ended up with $200 profit. We started training the women in our community to make the school uniforms. We went to South Africa. Ruth and I went to South Africa. We bought overlockers. We bought sewing machines. We started a sewing project. And we trained the women in the village who know how to sew, to cut and make the school uniforms. So instead of going to Gweru to buy uniforms, they are being made within the community. It created employment for the mothers. Do you know, it got to a point where if anyone stole anything from this school, there was community policing. If somebody was selling something on the black market, pencils, pens, books, they knew exactly where they came from. They must have come from Mazivisa Primary School. The women in the community were policing. They would get that person and take them back to the school to give it back. And that's the power of working with communities and finding out where they are at, what their needs are, not ours, not our perspective of what we want to come and help. We are facilitators. We need to be enterprise facilitators who come in with the resources, the financial resources. We should not be coming up with any ideas. We installed electricity at Mazivisa Primary. Then I realized I had a bill to pay from New Zealand for a school in Zimbabwe every month. Ruth and I decided to go home with a pen and a whiteboard. We got the community to the school and we brainstormed ideas. How are we going to pay for the electricity bill? One of my aunts put up her hand. She was 92 years old. She had 7 children who had died of AIDS, 15 grandchildren in this primary school. She says to me, Gertrude, we are going to the next village to get the corn ground. Why don't you invest in a grinding mill, Chigayo? The community is already spending money 10 kilometers away to get corn ground. Buy a grinding mill, put it at the school. The community will come to the school. Do you know they're making more money than they need? They pay their own electricity bill with money that was already circulating in the community. So what I've learned is if you want to help people, shut up and listen. We have to go in as facilitators. We have to go in and get them to create the solution because we have the solution to all of our problems. All we need sometimes is that cash injection. We need the support, like what Vicky was saying, knowing where to put the product. Ruth was also saying, you know, finding out what are the cash crops that they can start to grow that will make money. There is a girl in Kenya that I've been tracking on YouTube. I always try and research successful people in agriculture. She was 23 years old when she started her farming business. Now, our rural land is not sold in Zimbabwe. The tribal trust land is not sold. We can each go back to our local chiefs and say, I want to start a project with the community. You will be gifted land, free land. Where in the world do you get land for free? So this girl started leasing land from other people in the community. She would buy seed. She found out that if she grew paprika and watermelons, she could sell them in the hotel chains throughout Kenya. She is a multi-millionaire right now, just supplying watermelons and paprika spices. So what are the cash crops that people can start to grow? Where are the markets where we can sell this product? Vicky, you've got something to say there. You're muted.
Oh, I excused myself that time. I have another 30-minute Zoom meeting from 11 to now, but I didn't want to go out before I said something.
Okay.
As I was listening to Catherine about, I'm also coming from the Christian background. I'm a Methodist. Norma Muliswa, she's a lay preacher in the Methodist church. I think 2-3 weeks ago, she gave 5 tons of potatoes to the Methodist church. Part of it to go to the Matthew Risike home, and part of it to be distributed around the whole country in all Methodist church where there's need. So there will also be good, willing people out there. If they hear that there's this initiative, they will also come up, give to the church, give it through the church, or give it to the various projects which are going on. So it won't only be a few people, bringing ideas, whatever. But the moment people hear that there's a need in my community, like as you say, Gertrude and Ruth, you went back home and you did things, people will start to come out and gift people with all those things. As you say, the Sabuku, the chief, will gift anyone who is coming to their community and say, this is what I want to do, but I want to do it with the community. I don't have the land to gift them with anything so that they can start. So we have all the things there. It's just for us to put them together, in a systematic way. Going back to the same thing, if it's individualistic, people don't want to be part of that. But if we form communities and we are going to benefit the whole community, everybody will be willing to give.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you. And thanks so much for joining us again tonight. We will reconnect with you. We need to have a brainstorming session with you and start putting some practical how-to steps to move things forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Vicky.
Now, we were going to be joined by a male. What happened to the young man from Uganda?
I think he's having problems with his connectivity.
Okay. So where does this leave us, girls? I'm excited because there is so much potential and so many possibilities here. Ruth and I, when we were in Mazivisa, we were gifted acres and acres of land. The land is there. We just have to be really creative in terms of how do we create a coordinated effort. And the whole idea around cooperatives works when people work in a group. It's now a matter of deciding from where is our starting point? Where are we going to do this from? And Ruth, I would love to go back to Shurugwi, to Mazivisa.
I know.
We already have a community there, and we could start it as a pilot. Exactly. We could start the pilot there. Chief Mazivisa is still alive. We could go back to where we had left off and find continuity from there. But I'm really excited. We could do something big here. Any other contributions? We've got 10 minutes. Let's put some practical steps now in place so that each of our discussions takes us one step forward.
I think each one of us comes from a village or some rural background of some sort, and where we can speak to our family members and find out who are the influential people, obviously the chiefs in these areas, and whether we can have access to them, and then explain, like Vicky says, explain what we intend to do. Empower. I think the government is really, on the other hand, like through the women's ministry, they are pushing for women empowerment. So I think this is the right time. We are here, and like she said, their systems. I wasn't even aware that their system. The only and unfortunate thing is, I think this information is not disseminated in the rural areas. If we are using WhatsApp, if we are using social media, not everyone in the rural areas has access to data. Data is still costly in Zimbabwe at the moment. But I think what we need is go away and let's say give ourselves a timeline where we come back and say, okay, we can go to this area. We have had access. Somebody has given us, opened the door for us, and then start from there. But we just have to start. Otherwise, yeah, we also
Working
Mazivisa,
out from
we
home.
need to go back.
Yeah, and I'm really thinking if we were to pick up the Mazivisa project again, what can happen is we focus on one community, we get it up and running, that becomes the pilot. Then we go to Mabel's community, we get that up and running. Then we go to Kathleen's. We can do it village by village, but doing it as a coordinated effort. Because that's always the problem in Zim, is that Ruth is going to try and do something. I'm going to try and do something. Mabel's doing her own thing. It's when we come together and we put focus on one thing and make it succeed, then we can replicate it. We create a pilot from there. You know, just another contribution there. We had a drought in Shurugwi in, I think it was 2007, Ruth, when we started the feeding program. We would go to the school, within 10 minutes, the children would all fall asleep. We talked to the principals, Uganzi and Zara. Most kids were eating 2 or 3 times a week. You remember that year when there was that drought?
Yeah.
So we started a feeding program and we started giving the kids a bowl of porridge every morning. Now, I remember one morning waking up with one of my aunts, Tarainda Kumunda, 4 o'clock in the morning. It had rained. The water was waterlogged, ox-drawn plow, trying to achieve the impossible. When the sun came up, I saw something I hadn't seen before. And it was the mango trees. Mangoes grow like wildflowers in Shurugwi. There's mangoes everywhere during mango season. Mangoes are rotting. And I'm thinking, why are we growing corn? We should be investing in a crop, in a plant that grows naturally, that is drought resistant. So we talked to Chief Mazivisa and we raised the idea of creating a mango plantation in Shurugwi. And I started researching how to grow mangoes. I was in a United Nations meeting one day and I was giving a speech, talked about the possibility of creating a mango plantation in Mazivisa village in Shurugwi. And a man approached me and said to me, Gertrude, do you realize that if you pull this off and you grow the trees according to the United Nations bylaws, your community can earn carbon credits. People are being paid to put oxygen into the atmosphere to offset the carbon emission for the West. So we were going to start a project where every child at this school is gifted with a mango seedling. So when a child starts grade 1, they're given a tree. We were going to tie it into the agriculture program where the child has to water that tree, they have to look after it, they have to make sure that it's taken care of. By the time the child is in grade 7, mangoes take 5 to 7 years to grow. The plan was that we would create a juicing factory, or we could start to pickle these mangoes and create employment through just the mango plantation that is supporting the school. So we would be gifted trees. There are environmentalists who are looking for people who are willing to grow trees. In New Zealand, it's a huge project. People are given money just to grow trees to offset the carbon emission. And it can be any tree. So if in your village, it's guavas, then it's guavas that we invest in. But we have to find crops that grow naturally in that region and invest in that. So I'm thinking as a practical step, let's see, Ruth, if you can get hold of Vicky. And let's do a mastermind, a brainstorming session where she can share with us all of the knowledge she has, all the contacts she has on the ground, so that when we initiate something, we know exactly where we should go, who we should be talking to, who is responsible for the trade and export. Because that's the missing piece that we are having right now. I think that would be a really practical starting step to all of this. And then finding out in the community where memory died, who are the women we can start talking to now? We want to make this practical and visible and enroll women in that community to get behind this. And we will really blow it. Mabel.
Yeah. Also, I just didn't read the detail. Is she from, does it say on the report from Marak? Where is she from, the region?
Marange.
Who's that?
Marange.
Yeah. Is that in Mutare?
Mutare, yes.
Yeah.
That's where I'm from. I thought it sounded so familiar. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so
Wow.
yeah.
we have 4 minutes to go. There is a comment on Facebook. Liz is saying with the mangoes, you can actually freeze them to sell for juicing as well. Has the project started yet? So it was a project we were about to start before COVID happened, Liz. We were about to initiate that project. The challenge we would have with freezing is electricity. So not everybody in this community has got refrigerators or access to electricity. So our idea had been that we could either dry them because it's a very, very hot part of Zimbabwe and sell the mangoes as dried mangoes. But if we can get electricity installed in several places, then definitely the freezing of the mangoes and then juicing them would be an alternative. Thank you for chiming in. And Liz, if you could just put in the chat where you are located, how did you find out about the show? And if you're interested to participate in this project, we'd love to enroll you in that as well. Any parting thoughts, ladies? We have 3 minutes. Deborah?
I was just gonna say with the mangoes here. When I first came here, I was surprised to see dried mangoes, a small peck like this, and we eat them as snacks. But where I grew up, we've got a huge orchard of mangoes, and they used to just rot. We didn't dry them. This is knowledge that we need. We can dry them instead of watching them rot. We don't have to waste any resources. I see they are making leather out of mango.
Yes.
The outer of mango, they are making leather out of that and making shoes. We didn't know that. There's a boy in Ghana who's making charcoal out of coconut shell, because he saw mountains and mountains of them, people just chucking them, and they were becoming a nuisance. And he experimented and started making charcoal. Now he's supplying everywhere the charcoal. We buy it here. It's charcoal from Ghana, made from coconut waste that was going to waste. So we don't have to waste any resources at all. You are so right.
Yeah. But it comes down again to the training that I was just saying. They need to be in the know-how of doing things. Because without telling them, without showing them the way, they won't know. Just like what Vicky was saying, the ministry is teaching this and this and that. But down there in the rural communities, it doesn't seem like they are getting that message across them, because there's a lot of poverty around there. So there are those ones who know how to do things or where to sell them, because if they all knew, or if part of them knew of these farmers, we wouldn't see them in the street crying for money, because they would know where to sell their cotton, where to sell their the tobacco. They would know how to do that. But then if that message is not disseminated and sent to those people who are in the rural area, the farmers, they end up going backwards again. They're not getting anything out of their crop. So they need that training as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. So our time is up. Liz did try to get on the call. Thank you, Mabel, for introducing her. She said that I'm in Sydney, Australia. Mabel sent me the link. It wasn't working, and she's passionate about working with women and about women's issues. So we'll see if we can get her on the show tomorrow. Since she's in Australia, I'll give her a call now And Ruth, when you send out the link, I'll add it to the group that you created on Facebook.
Awesome.
So thank you, ladies. We will see you tomorrow. Let's now put some real practical things in place. Ruth, if you can get hold of Wachkwata Ushurugwi, let's enroll Mr. Chikwata and Chief Mazivisa and reinvigorate the project. If you girls are in agreement, that is a community we had already started helping. A lot of our content and our material is already there. Everything just, we dropped the ball when COVID happened and things just got a little bit challenging. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Same time, same story. Please keep sharing this video with other people. Please keep inviting other women from Zimbabwe to be part of the community so we can find a sustainable solution. So we'll play out with a short little video of the little girl again, reminding us what needs to be done. Thank you, ladies. Have a fantastic evening wherever you are in the world. And please, we need more men to weigh in on this subject and contribute as well. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Mama, why, Mama? Why did you say yes, Mama? Why, Mama? Why did you say yes? I'm pregnant. Look at me. I'm pregnant, Mama. Why? Why, Mama? I'm a child. I can't push another child. Why, Mama? I'm pain. I'm pain. I'm pain. Not to chat.